The Saints, where that armor of confidence that came with the win in Week 1 began to slowly crumble before today's game even began. 3 defensive starters would sit against the Redskins: Scott Fujita, Randall Gay, and Roman Harper. Offensively, no Marcus Colston. 4 guys who could have made a play on a day when the Saints desperately needed one. Whether to show confidence in one or the lack of in another, Sean Payton opted to put his defense on the field to open the game, something he said during training camp he could never envision himself doing. The move would prove fruitful, however, as the Redskins kicker shanked the first of 2 missed field goals on the afternoon. But from the beginning, the threat of a Saints running game was thinly veiled at best. At the end of the first quarter, the Saints had almost as many rushing yards, 5, as turnovers, 2.
Between the turnovers and their ability to run the ball and our inability to run the ball, those were 2 big things at the end of the game. Generally, the team that can run the ball better like that and not turn the ball over is going to win the game.
The one phase not won by the Redskins today was special teams. A fumble on a punt return set up the game's first touchdown, and Martin Grammatica's 49-yard boot gave the Saints, despite anemic offensive numbers, a 1-point lead at halftime. Opening the second half, the wheels began turning for the Saints and appeared to be coming off for the Skins after Robert Meacham caught his first NFL pass, which also just happened to be his first NFL touchdown. But after that, the Saints defense began to wilt under the kind of DC heat usually reserved for embattled politicians. The Redskins picked on the right side of the Saints defensive line with the run, and with the pass, found whichever side rookie cornerback Tracy Porter was on. The momentum, however, still remained with the black and gold after yet another special teams victory. Reggie Bush's 55-yard punt return put his team up 9 and in control.
It was a huge play for us at the time. We went up, I believe it was like by 9 points, and it was a huge play.
Felt like we were just going to explode in the second half offensively. We come right out the gate, score a touchdown, move the ball right down the field, and then the punt return. And so at this point, we're feeling pretty good, feeling like we've got a couple more left in us.
But the inability to sustain drives and run down the clock would eventually take its toll. After Will Smith sacked Jason Campbell at the 6-yard line, the Skins quarterback then reeled off 5 straight completions to 4 different receivers. Clinton Portis capped off the drive with an 8-yard touchdown run. And so, with a 2-point lead, the Saints went 3 and out, and Washington went to the air.
Avoiding the rush, going deep for Santana Moss. He's got it! Touchdown, Washington!
Drew Brees' second interception and a key 3rd down slant from Campbell to Santana Moss after that sealed the loss in a game that was very winnable. And for the Saints, in 1 week, they've gone from elation to deflation.
The fact we had a lead and then to be up by 9 and still not be able to finish, we got a lot of work to do.
Maybe when we went into our prevent, offense or prevent offense when we could have been attacking more maybe. But you can sit up here and make a million excuses why we didn't win the game. The fact of the matter is we didn't win the game, and that's why we're sitting here with a loss now.
So after posting 101 total rushing yards last week against the Buccaneers, the Saints totaled just 56 yards on the ground today. Reggie Bush led the black and gold with 28 yards on 10 carries. Pierre Thomas 6 times for just 8 yards. We welcome into the show now former Saints offensive lineman Brad Edelman. First off, thanks for being here. And second off, from week 1 to week 2. I know it's only week 2, but boy, good teams win games like this. This was definitely a missed opportunity by the Saints.
Well, this was a missed opportunity, and there were several missed opportunities throughout the game. What were we saying before? Why couldn't the Saints take advantage of the missed opportunities by the Redskins, because they had so many missed opportunities. It's such a back and forth game in that regard. I think the bottom line, though, is that the Redskins played better football overall than the Saints today, and they attacked a lot of the Saints' weaknesses, especially later in the game when we had injuries to our young defensive backfield.
But talk about Drew Brees, and he never looked comfortable. A guy that usually looks comfortable, especially back in week 1, he looked comfortable. He never looked like he could find his rhythm. How much was that a product of the offensive line, and how much was that a product of not having Marcus Colston?
Well, one, I think the offense is a little bit out of sync. Anytime you lose a key performer like Marcus Colston, it causes everybody to step up. And there was a beautiful timing between Marcus and Drew Brees, and that's one of the things the offense misses.
I thought you brought up a good point before when we were talking before the show about he's usually got rid of the ball in 3 seconds, and that just wasn't happening today.
That was the thing today, and that's one of the major elements of this game. When you saw the Washington Redskins come out in the first quarter and blitz, 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 grow after Drew, their game plan had to be, and they knew coming into this game, that they were not going to win unless they put pressure on Drew Brees. When Drew has a chance to stand back in that pocket and find his receivers, he's going to do it a high percentage of the time. Today they rattled him. They didn't put him on his back like they did, like our defense did to Tampa Bay last week and Garcia. But they were in his face. They were by his arms. We had 2 tip balls again. One or both of them were intercepted today,
yeah,
right?
both of his interceptions came on tipped balls, right?
And I think as an offensive lineman, especially with Drew Brees as your quarterback, you may get the sense that after 3 seconds that ball is always gone. And I saw a couple times today where it seemed the offensive line was a little bit surprised that the ball was still in Drew Brees' hand 4 and 5 seconds after the play, and they actually had a sack. So I would say a lot of what happened today, our offense's inability to get moving, is because of that pass rush and that blitz and really getting in Drew Brees' face today.
Right, and they never really established a run from the start of the game to the end of the game when they really needed that. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but you brought up a pretty interesting point. I thought you saw the big play from Campbell to Moss that pretty much won this game. You saw that being set up way back in the first quarter.
Well, what I saw when the Redskins came out today is a concerted effort to run the ball, move it between the tackles, and they really pounded the Saints to begin with. And I thought to myself, well, it looks like they may be setting up some play action because you know you're going to throw something in the mix here. And in fact, they did. And they hit us with a lot of play action. They hit us with a lot of counter movement. And for a team like the Saints, who is gearing up, getting their gel on defensively, wanting to react well to the ball, it worked well because we're moving in one direction, and they were able to counter it back and also fake on the passes. And that in and of itself, the play action, they set it up very nicely, and it worked for them throughout the game.
90-degree temperatures at FedEx Field, the hottest game ever to be played at that stadium, and it really wore down the Saints. When we come back, Jim Henderson will talk about just how much that heat wore down the Saints defense, plus much more with Brad Edelman. You're watching Fourth Down. Welcome back into Fourth Down. Check any almanac in September in D.C. should not compare to Millsaps in August, but the thermometer hovering around 90 degrees this afternoon at the Capitol. Today's game actually had a training camp type of feel, and as Jim Henderson reports, because the time of possession was dominated by the Redskins, so was the end of the game.
One of the Saints' buzzwords for victory is finish. They didn't today. Finished off by the Redskin running game and the lack of their own turnovers and the lack of the Redskins. On a day of 90-degree temperatures, the Saints were worn down by the Redskins' offense. Though the Saints led 10-9 at the intermission, the seeds of defeat had taken root. The Redskins had the ball for 7 minutes more than the Saints did, had rushed for 81 yards to the Saints' 21. The home team would finish with an 8-minute time of possession advantage and 149 rushing yards to the Saints' 55.
When you guys watched that first half, I mean, we got outplayed, I thought. They contained us and kept us in check defensively. And, at halftime, I think everyone to a man felt like we got to play better now. It's not going to be good enough.
In the fourth quarter, the Saints had the lead, but little left in the tank. Out of bullets on both sides of the ball. Last week, the Saints couldn't run for a first on 3rd and 3 and got away with it. Today, they couldn't run for a first on 3rd and 1 from their own 37 with 4:34 left. And this time, they couldn't get away with it.
That's a pivotal play in the game where they force us to punt, and we've got to punt there with the field position. That was a disappointing down for us.
A punt and one play later, the Redskins connected for the game winner.
Zone coverage, and it was a zone pressure, and Campbell was able to kind of climb up in the pocket and extend the play a little longer than we wanted, and Santana got behind Porter and it ended up being a big play.
It was a winnable game that wasn't, deserved or not. In Washington, D.C., Jim Henderson, Fourth Down on 4.
Altogether, the Redskins keeping the Saints defense on the field for a little more than 34 minutes, while on the bench, the Redskins D able to cool off under some misters almost 9 minutes more than their Saints counterparts. Joined once again by former Saints offensive lineman Brad Edelman. And have you ever been on the sideline where, boy, you can just feel that no matter what you do, the game is beginning to unravel for you, as it kind of appeared for the Saints in that fourth quarter today?
Yeah, unfortunately, way too many times over the years. And it's a sinking feeling. You know, momentum shifts all throughout a game. So the tough thing for a team to do is when you feel that momentum moving against you, especially when you're away and you're on the road, and the fans can create that as well. You have to fight through that and struggle through it. I don't think this team has any problem believing that they can do that, but it is an odd feeling. I recall a game in San Francisco many, many years ago, and we were so used to this back in the 80s, so used to when San Francisco was the dominant franchise in our league. So used to Joe Montana. No matter what you do to that team during the day, you can beat them up and down the field, but you were so used to Joe Montana mounting a comeback to beat you at the end of the game. And we were in San Francisco playing for, I think, the division lead, and Joe was marching down the field with less than 2 minutes left. And that sinking feeling sets in on the sideline, not on the field. You don't get a sinking feeling. You don't have time to be sinking on the field.
Right.
The sideline, you get that feeling we're going to lose it. But in fact, that day we didn't. We stopped them short, which in my mind plays right to that point, because you start to believe or start to feel it's slipping away. And when you can break that and turn the momentum, then you've got something going.
Right. And this wasn't Joe Montana. This was Jason Campbell that led the comeback today. And I think, though, that. And it was interesting, it was brought up in Jim's piece about how the defense kind of worn down. If the Saints would have tried to establish a running game, it didn't even look like, one, they couldn't, but two, they didn't even almost want to. It seems that once it didn't work at the start of the game, they kind of abandoned it.
Well, I'll tell you right now, it's not because they didn't want to. I mean, I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
But the difficult thing is, you know, let's look at the series that Deuce came in. We had one series, or a couple series with Deuce, but this series when Deuce came in, Deuce was in for 3 or 4 plays, and I'll tell you what, it almost seemed like magic to me, because for that few moments after Deuce was in the offense, it kind of went like clockwork. We went down the field, we scored. It was like a sense of familiarity to the offense, and I think what happens in an offense that has so many weapons and so many people to go to, that you have to have that familiarity all around the ball, and Drew is great at doing that and accomplishing that. But with Colston out, still trying to find a way to utilize Deuce, and juggling all of the injuries. I mean, I'm not even going to get off on that, because that's a whole, whole different game.
But they needed that one. They needed a 3rd and 1. It's 24-22. They're clinging to a lead, 3rd and 1. And for the second straight week, they can't get a first down. What do they have to do to get that 1 yard?
Well, you'd like to certainly like to think that Deuce could be in there and do it, and you always want to believe that your offensive line can put you in a position to pick up those yards. I'm not saying that they didn't consistently today, and I thought both the play of the Washington Redskins defensive lines and their secondary really thwarted our efforts to run the ball as well. Reggie is obviously outstanding, and I'm always impressed with his multitude of ability to participate or to contribute, like in the special teams today, and his commitment being here during the off season. But we all know that a guy like Deuce is the guy to carry the load, so to speak, is what we'd like to see on that
Well,
field.
next week against Denver, a very successful team throwing the ball. They're going to have to, A, get healthy, and B, try to make some more adjustments. That'll be the key for the Saints. Brad Edelman, thanks so much for spending some time on 4th Down tonight.
Always a pleasure. Appreciate it, Scott.